Call the meeting. Want to call the meeting to order. Just a point of procedure. I'm advised again that our host from Taish is not with us. So what that does, just to reiterate, it does not give us the ability to go into executive session. We're on permanent recording. And
I'm here, Bill.
oh, I was told you weren't going to be there.
I thought I was going to have a conflict, but I'm here.
Okay, all right, good. Never mind. All right, hold on one second. All members are present. Hear from the public. I see no public to be heard from. We'll go on to a selectmen's briefing. There are several, or at least a couple of items that I'm going to ask the board to consider adding to the agenda as we go on. One of them will be tax refunds, and the other one will be regarding our ride for Gage annual event in town, and anything else that we may come up with. As far as selectmen's briefings, the only thing I did want to reiterate was we have been working with the Board of Finance, and we published a notice of public hearing for the budget. It will appear on this Thursday's in this Thursday's Chronicle, and the hearing will be at 7 o'clock on Tuesday, April 4th. And that will be the public hearing on the budget. My understanding, it will be hybrid, both in the large conference room downstairs and on Zoom. Another point of interest, I have signed the settlement agreement with Sherry York and sent it off to town council. And so I think we're all set on that. I'll keep the board posted on reimbursements and everything that we approved at a prior meeting. I've also got an agreement that I've signed, and I'm trying to find the original with Karen Zulik regarding the stipend that we've approved for her to and it was retrospective, if I remember right, to February 1st to assume the role as a webmaster. And she's already done that. And we had an agreement that was approved by all parties, including the union. And Catherine, I believe you said that you thought it'd be appropriate if all selectmen signed off on that. So I'll get a copy of the original. I'll send you and Roger an email and leave it in your box.
Okay.
For you folks to sign it. Let me see if I have anything else here. I do have a couple of other things to go regarding correspondence, but I think I included it in this budget. Excuse me, in the agenda for today, so we'll address it when we get there. The next item is acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting of February 21st, March 6th, and March 14th. Do I have any motions?
I'll make the motion
For the 21st?
for the 21st.
Is there a second? Not hearing another one. I will second that motion.
Was there a problem or?
Well, I second the motion, so we have a motion on the floor, so I will open the floor for discussion.
There were some details that were left out of the minutes, so I thought should go into them. Regardless, just go ahead with the vote.
Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes of February 21st, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you. the minutes for March 6th, 23.
Is that the meeting that we didn't get the recording out onto the website?
I don't recall, Catherine. It could have been. I believe it's out.
Okay.
I think
I
they're
believe
all
you.
out there now.
Okay, I think I was missing one.
Is
I'll make
there,
the motion.
there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? I'll second that motion. Any more discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye,
Hi,
Aye.
unanimous. And the next is the minutes from March 14th. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? I'll make the second. Is there any discussion? Corrections, additions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
hi.
Hear from boards, commissions, and committees? Hear from boards, commissions, and committees. Hearing none, we'll go to item 7, old business. Status of the Ashford School Program as proposed by the Rec Commission.
I don't know if we should go into executive session on this because there are some issues around this. That are
Is it
somewhat,
regarding personnel
regard-
or legal?
yeah.
I've got a couple of things also to discuss personnel. Shall we hold on this item until towards the end of the meeting, and then we'll go into
I think
executive session?
I think that would be good.
Okay.
Okay.
Why don't we do that? We'll move to item B and just temporarily table item A. Review and or act on the 23-24 general government budget. I sent you some alternatives that I was working on last night. And Roger, I gave you a hard copy today. I don't know if you saw your email.
I did
Catherine,
not.
did you see my email last night about that?
No, I saw it this morning.
Okay. What I've done is I've done 3 alternates. And as I mentioned in my email, we could pick one of these, or we could do a combination or a part of one or the other. The contingency amount of 30, we presently have 35,000 in our budget. I've reviewed some alternatives on what I perceived as probabilities to consider with our union negotiations coming up. And I'm comfortable that we have a at least a $4,000 buffer in there that I think without hurting anything, we could consider to reduce that amount as one of the figures. I'm looking at alternate 1 now. The stipend for the citizen. This was a new item that we've never carried. It was a request of the editor of the Citizen, Sherry Much, who has since that request tendered her letter of resignation as editor. I would recommend that we consider cutting that out of the budget, since for 70 years or so that paper was run by a group of volunteers. I would hope that we can do that again. I have talked to the fire chief, and while they don't like to cut any money and feel they put together a realistic budget, they feel that they could absorb a $3,000 cut. Animal control. Chris has advised me, and my recollection over their some of the administrations with Ralph Fletcher and with Mike Sambo. This was an area that was cut previously. And because we have statutory requirements and we do have some buffer in that amount, my recommendation would be 5. We could do more than that if we needed to.
And that is, that still fulfills the statutory requirement?
It does.
And is it, Chris, is that practical?
If that budget runs over, there is money in the dog fund
Okay,
that can be used
I
to
remember.
supplement.
Talk to the-
Statutorily, it can be used to supplement certain line items in the budget.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there another conversation going on?
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
sorry.
gentleman just put his head in the door here. It's over. The other thing is $2,000 from DPW in the sand and salt, separate line items. We had increased both of those line items. Joe had put in to increase those because of the additional costs we're incurring by 2,000 each line item. And we felt that if we run short, we're going to have to come up with it another way during next year, but that would be an area for our consideration. And then the $800, those all add up to $9,200, and the $800 we'd have to designate from somewhere else. Alternate 5, again, would be an appropriation from the contingency fund. Number 2 on that, we had put in at the request of the department a proposed increase for the director in the amount of $14,000. What I'm suggesting the board at least consider is reducing that to 7, with the understanding we will make up the difference next year to bring her. The thought of that 14,000 was based on bringing that position up to a comparable position to other department heads.
Did we ever work out what we were getting for funding that did bring her salary up? When we look at her salary line, it sounded to me like it didn't really represent all of the monies that are paid to her.
Yeah, and I got clarification on that. Thanks for bringing that up, Catherine. That money, first of all, we get 14,000 from DCF.
Mhm.
And that does not go to her, that goes to the general fund and has been offsetting her salary for a number of years, for as long as it's been in existence. So it's not in addition to what we pay, it's in reimbursement to ours. Then there's
Thank you.
another, there's a stipend, I believe it's about $3,000
Yeah.
for management of another program, same scenario. Sherry Susie and Laura clarified that for me. That does not go to her or enhance her salary. It goes to the general fund, our general fund, to offset that salary.
Okay.
Um,
And then everything else was grants towards programs.
Correct.
Thank you.
I also then repeated the fire department 3,000 and slightly increased the animal control. That alternate 2 reaches our $20,000 request from the Board of Finance. Then the third alternate, which is my least favorite, because I think there's more a need in it, it shows up more and more. All we've got to do is walk around this building on the exterior. It's obvious, but there are a number of areas within the building that it's obvious that we've been postponing and neglecting maintenance for a long time. But that would be eliminating the $20,000 additional that we put in through the transfer station for additional staffing up there.
When
So-
it comes to the transfer station, this person is supposed to kind of sort of be everywhere. They're supposed to be doing minor repairs and painting in terms of our buildings, but they're also supposed to be, I don't know, taking tickets or something, checking stickers or other work at the transfer station. I would rather that the 2 transfer station employees manage the transfer station and what needs to be done there. And this person is fully working on repairs and, issues in our buildings.
Yeah, I agree.
Because Bill, he's going to get pulled away. It's
I-
happened before.
I agree to a certain extent. The only thing, I think we're all very much aware that we've got to do some major changes at the transfer station as far as
Yes,
job responsibilities, assignments, that sort of thing. What I envision this person doing as we start that, and that's going to be starting within the next few months or whatever, we would probably have to put some emphasis on him or that person helping with that transition. But my hope would be that eventually then it would be able to put more time in to general maintenance as we catch up and come up with the certain projects. There are
Okay.
some things that position, it just in thinking about it, is going to be busier during good weather times than bad weather times and inside work. So, you know, another thing that we didn't talk about is that, and we may be talking about hypotheticals and best case scenario, but if Joe or Joe is not going to be there, DPW is in the middle of a heavy storm, needs assistance with even loading salt through the
that one's
backhoe,
different.
being able to
That's-
assist in that somewhat.
Yeah, that's different. That's more of emergency kind of
Yeah,
work.
Yeah.
Okay.
I-
But the reality is whenever we have had someone who is part-time and supposed to be doing some repairs here and there or cleaning here and there, we have had trouble because they get pulled away by DPW. Okay, that seems to be I would say DPW for things like transfer station tasks and other things, rather than the real efforts to help us with our buildings. So there's been virtually nothing done
Have we,
by them.
I hate to bring up another job description, but do we have a job description for this position?
We have not detailed that yet.
Okay,
Yeah, and that would be part of the
Okay,
union contract.
We've talked in generalities.
Yep.
I'm going to assume, yes, Catherine, that would be a union position. So anyway, those are the three alternatives
Now-
to meet the
Yeah.
mandate from the Board of Finance to cut 20,000 from our budget.
returning to alternate one, I mean, you already mentioned kind of kicking the animal control up to 6,000. I mean, couldn't we just kick it up, just make the animal control to 5,800?
We could.
Okay.
We could.
I make a motion that we accept alternative one with that change, 6,800 out of animal control.
Yeah, 5,800, sorry, an additional 800 from.
Oh, 5,800, sorry.
Is there any more discussion?
I'll second that.
You know, I think that works best without hurting anybody
Yep.
too badly.
Yep.
And I do appreciate the departments that have cooperated and stepped up on that, so. Any more discussion? Hearing none? all-
The only thing I wanted to mention is with our citizen stipend, we are now in a position, and we'll talk about it later on in the agenda. But we're now in a position where we need to find a person to do our citizen. And I was anticipating it would be a paid job. So, we're gonna end up probably being short in that area. So I just like to bring it up to the selectmen.
My goal, and I hear your point, Catherine, my goal is to come up with a committee, as we've had for 70 years, up until about almost 70 years, up until about a year or so ago, where we would have a committee to be able to work on this.
We did not have a committee.
We have
For
not had a
years.
committee for, I don't know about years.
Well, I was here.
I only became aware that we did not have a committee just during my tenure here. As for selectmen again. But for years, we had a multifaceted volunteer staff who happily did that. My goal is to try to see if that resource is still there. If not, I think we ought to all be aware that we may have to come to a paid position too. But
That's what, yeah, I'm not comfortable with the committee because of the issues that we have faced in terms of decisions about what goes into the citizen. Just a committee is less likely to have the training to understand what should go into it.
Well,
No, we'll have that
we,
conversation.
we can agree to disagree on that for now, but
Yeah, we do.
I hear your point, Catherine. Okay, any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion on the floor to go with alternate one with the adjustment of increasing the animal control deduction to bring it up to $20,000, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, folks. All right, and I mentioned that we're doing the public hearing. Just as a point of interest, and it kind of relates a little bit to citizen and what we just talking about. Because of timing, we could not do the legal notice in the citizen this year, for this particular public hearing. And I'm advised by Chris that the cost that we're going to incur to run this ad in the Chronicle now is going to run us about $1,000. So, I mean, in addition to being a community service that I think is vital for the community and the citizen, there are monetary advantages to the town to be paying for a publication generating from our town and not paying an outside organization like the Chronicle to run an ad to meet the same legal requirement.
Okay, our average citizen doesn't meet legal requirements.
It does.
Yes, it does.
It does, but the timing for this particular publication
Yeah.
doesn't meet it.
Yeah.
So, no, and that's one of the many values of the citizen.
Yeah.
It does
Okay.
reach every mailbox in town, which
Yeah.
falls within the statutory requirement.
So this is under item B, correct? Review and act on the general government budget adjustments.
Correct. General discussion. All right, moving on to item C, review and or act on proposed capital improvement budget and CNR, proposed CNR allocation. We've kind of touched on this already. I've addressed the Board of Finance a couple of times. If you go to the last publication, and I believe we discussed at our last two selectmen meetings, dated March 17th, that's pretty much got the breakdown that was recommended by the committee to our board, and our board kind of validated the last time. It's been presented to the Board of Finance. I'm comfortable with it. What I've asked the Board of Finance at their next agenda, and hopefully they will put it on, is consideration of making an appropriation to a percentage that they're satisfied with to bring up the CNR fund to a point to fund our proposed for this year's spending on CNR, plus to leave something there. And that right now they've got a 14.3% over the 11.5% that they had put in for last year to have in our undesignated fund balance. And what we have recommended, and I believe I've sent you folks the estimates that we've got from our treasurer, is that they consider reducing that to whatever percentage they're comfortable with. The feel that I got from their last 3-hour meeting was that they're going to look at leaving 11.5% as the buffer in there. And that's what they did last year. We did better than that, but I'm comfortable with that. And
That is what is in their current policies and procedures.
Yeah.
So did we do the calculation on what that 11.5% would be in terms of money?
Catherine, we didn't do 11.5, but I
She was
sent
trying to
out-
do it on the fly for me during that meeting.
Yeah, I sent out what 11 and 12.
No, I know.
But I didn't do the 11.5.
All right, so when we make our recommendation, we're gonna be telling them what that amount is or not?
I'll try to have that figured. I mean, you were at the meeting Thursday, but what I suggested is that they act out at their next meeting this coming Thursday. And, you know, the percentage is up to them.
All right,
I feel our board is comfortable with 11 or 12 or anything in between that they decide. And that, I mean, talking generalities, that will pay for the funding for CNR this year. And according to my calculations, leave roughly 200,000 in that fund for consideration for next year.
which is not much.
Which is not much, but it's at least something. And I know, you know, members of our advisory committee, particularly Chuck Funk, thinks that it's imperative that we do that. Now, one of the things that is coming up, the last time we did a bonding issue, and it was for the town hall here and the library and that, there were funds left over that we had authorization for bonding that we went ahead and did the bonding. And the difference between what our actual costs were and the projects went into the CNR fund. And I'm hoping that we'll follow the same procedure when the roof project is completed at the school to help boost that up. We won't know until we get there. And right now, prices are only going up on everything. So I don't want to be too optimistic, but I'm hoping that that's a resource that they'll be able to look at that makes sense to help bring up the balances of the CNR fund even higher than they are.
So when I think about the bonding bill,
Yeah,
this is the thing I mentioned, I think, in our last meeting. Or no, I mentioned it at the Board of Finance meeting. With our bonding, we're bonding for the 500,000, the 5 million.
5 million, yeah.
Then we're gonna get a 65, if I understand correctly, 65%
Reimbursement.
reimbursement. And wouldn't we want that reimbursement to go? One, it cuts down the amount of bond we have to actually pay for.
Correct.
So it's going to reduce, you know, our payments and hopefully pay it off early. That would be a good thing. So I don't understand how any money's left over from that project, because I'm not thinking there would be that kind of a thing. Am I missing the point on something here?
Well, in my general talks with our finance advisor and everything, and just doing some rough calculations, I mean, we were at 63, now we're at 65, which is good news.
Yeah.
We're thinking that with that reimbursement, the bond that is going to eventually evolve is going to be between 1.7 million and $2 million for the town's share of those costs.
Yeah.
At that time, then the town is going to have to consider, if it's 1.7, do you want to go with a $2 million bond and put the rest in the CNR? You know, those are bridges that are going to have to be crossed when we get to that point, and we could fine tune those dollars. But that's going to have to be deliberated between, well, primarily it's the Board of Finance's responsibility, but certainly the Board of Selectmen is going to have to deliberate on that and make some recommendations. Right now, we're because we don't have solid figures, we haven't done final design or CDs, construction documents or whatever. Some of the, well, the building committee is comfortable with suggesting a $5 million bond. It's an estimate as best on what our eventual costs are going to be. And I'd have to go back, Catherine, and look at some of the minutes and everything, and how that last transaction, when we were doing our last large bonding issue on this building and et cetera, how those funds were divided up and how much actually did benefit the CNR fund. I just heard that.
Oh,
but
it doesn't, it's irrelevant now.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a whole new ball game, and a lot has changed. When we got the original bond, I think it was 3-point-something%, and it got down to 2-point-something%
Yeah.
because we refinanced. So, I mean, all of the
We-
stars aligned when
Yeah.
we got that bond. That's not what it is today.
we bundled a lot of several smaller issues that we had outstanding, everything into that one, but it is
Yeah,
a different animal. But the only point
Yeah.
I was making is that there was a theory there that I'm hearing that the town was able to embellish the CNR fund at that time. I don't know the mechanism, I don't know
Yeah.
the dollars, but
well,
it-
and to be,
I
and to be
agree,
quite
it's
candid,
it's totally a different animal.
and to be quite candid, we were a bit penny wise and pound foolish on that one. Because there was nothing put in place for, say, security on our doors or, those kinds of things that should have been there for ADA access.
Yeah.
So there's that, there's, alarm systems that don't go off, are not functional. And there's some other things that were done that were a little more cheaply done than they should have been.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and we're paying the price.
Looking at this building and,
Yep.
now that we're looking at a 16, 17-year-old building, those shortcuts that were taken then,
Yep.
we
Paying for them now,
we
literally.
were a penny wise and a dime foolish, and believe me, as we all know, we're paying for it now. But it is what it is. You can't change that. All right,
Right.
any further?
I
discussion?
just wouldn't assume that we're gonna have leftover money from a big bonding project that we can somehow replenish CNR with, and that would be a number of years down the road. So we have to get from, ultimately having $200,000 in our CNR fund for next year. And the kinds of things that we normally have to purchase, each year, use CNR for. So, that's, we're not in a good position.
The good news for this year, we're talking somewhat hypothetical, but there are some spending issues that were in our budget this year. One of them we took as an emergency action regarding that $50,000 in fuel emergency contingency fund. We have not touched. We've had considerable dollar savings from the finance department because we have not filled a couple of critical positions yet. So those are monies that come July 1st next year will be transitioned over to the general fund, and I'm hoping leaves some room for us to embellish the CNR fund. But those are all things, they're hypotheticals, they're yet to come.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to keep them in mind. All right, any more discussion on the general budget? I want to thank Catherine and Roger and everything. I mean, I think we did the job that had to be done on the budget. Right now, the last figures I got, because some of our revenues went up, I got updated figures from the assessor. We were at 0.97 increase in the grand list. That's now up to 1 point of percentage, which equates to about $115,000. So our treasurer's made some of those adjustments based on that. And right now we're looking at a 0.82 mil increase. The last figure that I got from Sherry, and things are still being fine tuned, but that's the figure we're looking at right now as far as a mill rate increase. And coincidentally, it looks like the town government side, last time, which was last Friday, I talked with Sherry, our spending overall, bottom line, was cut by $2,500 less than we spent last year in this year's budget. So, all in all, I think we've done the job that as best we could, and I appreciate the cooperation, and we've worked together as a team on this. Okay, item C, review and or act on proposed capital improvement. We've discussed that already, excuse me. New business. I don't know why I put this in there. Capital Projects Committee update. I think we've finished with that. I do, Catherine, you had mentioned, and I mentioned it to the committee, and none of them need a whole lot of meetings, but I think it's a good idea to keep that committee together and to try to at least quarterly have a meeting just to update where we are, what we're considering from CNR balances.
Actually, that's been the intent. That's been the intent since I was first selected,
It just
is that they
hasn't-
should be meeting quarterly.
Yeah, it just hasn't really been happening, but I think that that's an excellent idea, and I will propose that to them. Item B, discuss and interact on the Ashford Citizen Administration. We've touched on this already. But my personal opinion is I think the citizen is one of the finest elements of production that the town has done in our existence as far as communication with the entire town. It's our one resource. If we were to rely on the Chronicle or the Current or whatever, we'd have no information out there. And I will commit, and I believe you and Catherine and Roger feel the same way, to do everything possible to maintain the publication of that particular citizen for as long as possible. And Sherry has given us notice that this next issue is going to be the last. She is on vacation and out of state now. And I know personally, I'm going to ask her to at least give us another 1 month publication, so we have an opportunity to get our ducks in a row. This is kind of short notice. And while we formulate a plan and figure out exactly what we're doing, but it's important to me to work as hard as we can as a team to make sure that we continue the citizen.
This situation and how it was handled created a lot of angst for Sherry. And I find it unlikely that she's going to want to do another freebie going through this agony for an extra month. She's very concerned about how this was handled and now how that can affect our town clerk's credibility when it comes to our elections, which is sad to hear.
Yeah, it is.
So I am not counting on her being here. So we need to figure out something ASAP.
Yeah, I agree. I believe I prefaced my comments when I was going to appeal to her, but I'm not solid that's going to be done. And we will make her letter of resignation a part of the minutes of this meeting.
Thank you. I wanted to ask for that.
Just for public information wise, and so she has an opportunity to express and explain what her rationale was.
And I think it's important.
Viewpoint.
And I think it's important that should this come up, these types of issues that especially affecting our town clerk and that office, that we support her. She is extremely ethical, and she's done such a great job with the citizen and the work that she's had to do, that office has had to do on our elections. And I would not tolerate somebody challenging how above board they are.
Couldn't agree more. Appreciate her many years of service on a volunteer basis that she's done for the citizen and all.
Right. This is a shame because this was her baby.
Yeah, no, it is a shame. Okay, agenda items for our upcoming meeting. Any suggestions? If any come up, please let me know and we'll include.
Oh, so when are we acting on the Ashford Citizen?
Acting per se, what?
Okay, so I just wanted to remind you that the work on the Ashford Citizen starts, let's see, she had said April would be the last issue. So the work starts in basically a couple weeks and goes out till about the 23rd, possibly the 24th in terms of what the person has to do. So if we don't have someone in place soon and a process in place, then we're not going to make the May Citizen. And the May Citizen is the one that will also have, would also normally have on the front page what our town meeting, our referendum dates and times. So I'm a little concerned about us having something in place by then. So I think that, I don't want to wait a couple of weeks here to get something together and get someone in place to do the citizen.
I would not be opposed to us having a special meeting about that directly after she comes back to ask her to give us an actual list of her timeline and everything. My last conversation with her, she indicated to me, Catherine, that you had advised her you already had somebody in mind. And I said, well, as a board, we have not discussed that yet, but we
Whoa,
will.
whoa, whoa. I advised her something?
That you thought you already had somebody in mind.
No,
Okay,
no, I know who I don't want it to be.
okay.
No,
You
I don't
gonna
have
jump in there,
somebody in
Catherine?
mind.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I don't want it. I don't want it to be Roger. Okay? I just, all right. No, I
Oh,
don't
it's a
have
shame.
somebody in mind.
He was so.
It has to be. Yeah, there's got to be a process in place. It's got to be someone who's pulling it together.
Yeah.
And there's going to have to be a review done before it goes to print.
Mhm.
At least that's my opinion. And we need to work out what that process is.
Yeah.
And I'm a little concerned about leaving it up to, a committee that where we could have individuals who are, have very different opinions about what can go into it. So we need to we, the selectmen, need to set the standard for it.
Well, and that's why, and I think because we do value her work and her opinion.
Yeah.
Upon her return next week, it would be.
I have no problem with that.
It would be of value to us to have a meeting. We'll call it an organizational meeting or whatever, and try to lay out a specific plan, detail what the duties are and how we want to address that. So,
All right.
You also have to bear in mind the fact, and Karen, I think, can speak to this, that the cutoff, the traditional cutoff for publication is the 20th of the month.
Right.
So if you need to do something, if you want to do something for May, you have to have something in place. You have 3 weeks, basically.
Exactly. And that means getting a person in, making sure the process is laid out and letting that person get through the process.
Mhm.
And then we definitely have to review what's being put in there. And it's not going to be without some issues. I mean, some flaws, I'm sure. So, so yes, special meeting, hopefully, when she comes back, she's coming back, next week.
next week.
Yeah.
Okay, it's with regret, item D here, and we'll make his letter of resignation also part of the minutes. But as we've anticipated for some time, he did give us a heads up that he was considering it, and Joe Kalinowski has tendered his resignation. I believe it's for the 10th of July. And it's with much regret that we accept that, and we wish him nothing but the best. I've got numerous job descriptions from other towns sitting on my desk, and we'll be reviewing those and sharing those with. I'll be reviewing those and sharing them with the board, and we should start advertising on that ASAP.
Yeah. Once we have that job description.
So we will do that. I have been informed that there's a company out there, and I've asked for the contact information. I hadn't got it, but does this sort of thing, like developing job descriptions, comparing them with statewide other towns and what they do in those duties. I just throw this out. I haven't made up my mind one way or another, other than getting some information for us. But they do that for $400 a position. And as an outside third-party source, I'm just thinking it may be something we'd want to think about. But I'll have more information on that for you in the future.
So just so you know that when I was for Selectmen, Joe provided some outside information, and that's when we updated the job descriptions.
Joe Kalinowski,
Yes.
you mean regarding, yeah. In reviewing his existing job description, and
Mhm.
knowing what he actually does are far apart at this point. That's why we have to take a close look at that.
Right.
We will
Okay.
do that. I would like to add to the agenda, the approval of tax refunds.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Chris, the floor is yours. You're muted.
Linda has given us two. Both citing General Statute 12-129. Michael and Lisa Kelly in the amount of $180.04. And second is Sarah Lucas in the amount of $463.36.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved. A second.
Citing the statute. Any more discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous, thank you. I'd also like a motion to go into executive session to,
Do we
What
have-
about ride? What about
Right.
ride for Gage?
oh, I'm sorry, thank
Yep.
you. I'll
We have
entertain a
to
motion
add that to the agenda.
add that to the agenda.
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Yes.
Okay,
Second.
there's a second. Any more discussion? And this will be for September 9th.
Aye.
And they are submitting all of the insurance forms and doing what they've done for the past 7 years. All in
Okay,
favor?
so we just voted on the motion, right?
Yep.
Right,
Aye. All right, and so this is the, how many years?
so this will be our 7th or 8th year.
Right, and we've always approved it. To my knowledge, we've never had any issues with it.
No,
Nope.
no,
So what is the motion that's needed?
just to authorize them to verify that they're allowed to do that on September 8th. Was there a rain date?
8th or 9th.
Excuse me. 9th. Chris, was there a rain date?
No, it's a
No.
motorcycle run. They
Okay,
rain or shine.
okay.
They're pretty tough. I've gone to their event.
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. All right, I'd like a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Any discussion of that?
Yeah.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we need to
Okay.
stop.
Here you go.
Thank you. All right, we are coming out of executive session. And I'm going to return to agenda item that we tabled under old business, item A, status of after-school child program. Do we want to take any action on that?
I'd like to, what's the word I use? I'd like to postpone discussion on this until some of the other town leaders have met with us.
I have no objection to that.
I'll second that.
We'll carry it on the agenda for our next meeting.
Okay,
further
all in,
discussion.
I've got a second and then we're gonna vote.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor of that, signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. I believe we're ready for adjournment.
Did we have to accept Joe's resignation? Did we cover that?
I thought we did that.
Did we? I'm sorry.
With many thanks, I think we said, and we're gonna
Oh,
make
yes.
this letter a part of the minutes.
Okay.
as
Yes,
well as
thank you.
Sherry Much's letter as part of the minutes. I think we're all set.
A motion to adjourn?
Seconded.
I've got 11:07. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.